Hello, everyone. Welcome to Mex Moves, podcast covering Mexico's business and financial landscape for an American audience. This week, we're going to focus on businesses in Mexico related to the Super Bowl. The best known is Avocados and Guacamole, and we're going to have with us today Juan Saldiva, who will join in a few moments to talk about the outlook for guacamole and generally avocado branded business in the US. We're also going to talk about a less known trend, which is Mexico producing advertising spots that are showed on the Super Bowl, even if when you look at the spot, you'd have no idea that they're actually made in Mexico. And with us to talk about that is Avelino Rodriguez, who's the CEO of The Lift, which is Mexico's #1 audiovisual production services company. Before we go into that, Eduardo, welcome.
Hi, Damien. How are you? Great to be here.
Tell us what you're thinking about the good news on Monday morning that President Claudia Sheinbaum revealed to the world that she'd reached a deal on the tariffs.
Well, I think on one end, I think it was great news. We saw it on how the currency came back after depreciating all the way to 21.4 or 5, and it closed the day at around 20.55. So the market showed us that the decision by Sheinbaum to negotiate a deal with Trump was very well received. It was very well received because the impact of those tariffs on Mexico would have been tremendous. The economy would have been pushed into a recession without any doubt. I mean, we're already suffering from a very heavy slowdown. The Mexican economy contracted in the last quarter of last year. So it would have been a disaster, and it would have taken away from Mexico a lot of the shine that he has accomplished over the last 3 decades by increasing trade with US and Canada. So I think on that end, it was very well received. It was good news. We have to wait and see what the 30 next days have to deliver for the Mexican economy, how she can avoid those tariffs for good. That's the main goal, I think. And on that end, we will have to wait and see their capacity to convince Trump that Mexico is doing everything it can to stop the flow of migrants, which he has already had, but mainly to stop the flow of narcotics, mainly fentanyl, to the US. On that end, the accusation that the Mexican government is linked with drug traffickers is a very serious one. And we are also, or I think there will be some announcements on that end too, so that Sheinbaum can convince Trump that the accusation is completely flawless, or that if there is any potential links, that she's taking care of them.
Yeah, it's undoubtedly good news, Eduardo. I think there's probably two concerns, notwithstanding the positive development on Monday. One is the mere threat of tariffs may put investment or some investment on hold. People had in the past sort of thought of Mexico from a business perspective, sort of like a 51st state that you could export for tariff-free to the US without any risk.
Correct.
And that, without any question, is no longer the case. People are, worried that something like this might happen again. They're going to have to strengthen their supply chains, envisage a scenario where tariffs on Mexico are potentially imposed. So I think a brand new $5 billion car factory probably not going to be announced because it would probably upset Trump. And therefore your sort of outlook in the US. But it also might be a risky thing to do if something like this happens. And the second, of course, is a 30-day delay, officially at least. Most people think that a deal will be struck again, but it's obviously not sure, and it's very difficult to predict what Trump will do. Polymarket, which is an exchange that you can bet on future political events and economic events, is giving about 50-50 odds the tariffs will be permanently kind of removed, and 50% that they'll be imposed at some point before May. So definitely the betting markets don't think that this is over.
It's not a done deal.
Yeah. Well, with that, let's go to our first guest today. In fact, our first guest on Mex Moves. It's a real pleasure to have with us Juan Saldiva from SW Consulting. Juan is an expert in media, marketing, and e-commerce. He's based in Los Angeles, where he's been for a number of years now, but he's originally from Mexico City. He's worked for more than 25 years in media, marketing, and helping CPG companies, among others, with strategy, M&A, and the US market growth, often with a focus on the Hispanic market. And he's currently working on developing a branded avocado US business and has spent a fair amount of time looking at the avocado market. So Juan, as we all know, there's a Super Bowl on Sunday, Kansas City Chiefs versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Tell us who you think is going to win given that you're there in the US. Tell us if you're going to New Orleans, and tell us what the Super Bowl means for the avocado and guacamole market in the US and therefore for Mexican exporters.
First of all, Damien and Eduardo, thank you very much for inviting me today. It's great to be with you guys, and I love the discussion around avocados because it's a fantastic platform to talk about not only a great product that comes from Mexico, but also a product that has been growing massively in the US, leveraging great marketing strategies, and on top of a product that actually is a healthy product, are much healthier than other snacks in the US. As a starting point, before I jump into the Super Bowl, which I believe it's an extraordinary marketing space for avocados, which actually was discovered by the Avocados by Mexico a few years ago, let me brief you quickly about how big is this avocado industry. Worldwide, the avocado industry is approximately $38 billion, of which one third, 9 billion, are consumed in the US. Mexico alone exports like $3.3 billion to the US, which actually makes it a very important product that is actually exported to the US. Of the total, let's say 9 billion of US market size in terms of from an avocado point of view, processed avocados are 4.4 billion, which is approximately half, and of which one tenth of that, like 400 million, is guacamole. Okay, so again, the guacamole is a product. It's almost like 5% of the total avocados consumed in the US, but still it is a category which is growing rapidly, and most likely this 400 million in the US will double by the early 30s. The Super Bowl is a very important point in the year. It's the Christmas, I would say, of avocado, because it has been the stage and the center stage in which the avocados are promoted, and the guacamole is positioned as a healthy snack. Now, what's interesting about guacamole is that, and the great vision of the avocado growers and the avocado promoters, is that they inserted the product within a 51 billion snack industry in the US. So the guacamole was positioned within a category that includes chips, pretzels, popcorn, dips, and many other things that are present during the event and during the celebration of actually watching the Super Bowl. It is a product that is clearly positioned as a healthy, plant-based product during the celebration. Traditionally, the moment through which, if the Super Bowl was celebrated, had pretty much soft drinks and beer and pizzas and things that all of which are unhealthy, right? So the guacamole threw itself into this celebration, which is probably one of the most important ratings-wise events in the year. And in doing so, it has a very, very clear, unique value proposition during the event, which is a delicious Hispanic-centered healthy snack. So that is an introduction, probably. The idea is to add value to the conversation.
Juan, can I ask you who came up with the idea of introducing Mexico's avocados into that snack category? Was it the US side or the Mexican side or a combination?
The Association of Mexican Growers of Avocados came up with the idea, and they made an amazing bet a few years back, and they came up with, an amazingly entrepreneur idea of investing more than $4 million in spots during the Super Bowl. At that point in time, they rapidly positioned, mimicking the Apple strategy on how to position one product very strongly with actually a relatively low share of voice in a massive event. That was clearly a tipping point in how the avocados were positioned as a healthy snack and a cool snack during a celebration like this one. The need for a plant-based and healthy product is and has been present for many years now. So I think avocados for Mexico, the timing was perfect because they provided two things. One is a healthy alternative during the celebration, and secondly, a Hispanic and cool product during the celebration as well.
Don't forget one, a tasty one. Everybody loves avocados, I would suspect. I haven't heard anyone that does not like having an avocado toast or guacamole or just avocado with whatever.
To that point, many brands are actually developing multiple types of alternatives, and there's very important trends at the supermarket level and at the brand level, innovating around the guacamole. On an average supermarket, you're going to find multiple, let's say, well-known brands with fresh guacamole, guacamole powder, guacamole mix. Companies like Herdes with their own guacamole-based salsas, and with Holy Guacamole that is co-owned by Megamix, which is owned and controlled by the Herdes family. You have companies like Calavo, you have other companies like Yucatan Foods, and many other brands participating in developing and positioning their guacamole brands while also providing private label guacamole and spices and production for supermarkets. So it is clearly expected that the demand and development of guacamole products will continue growing. Hence, the expected growth of 2x by early the 2030s.
And Juan, what do you think about other avocado-based products? Avocado olive oil, avocado ice cream. Do you think there's also opportunities there for the market to grow beyond guacamole?
For sure. And let's say non-egg plant-based products are also growing rapidly in the US. Avocado is a very strong alternative in that category. Avocado oil is a product that is growing rapidly. Mexican originated brand which is called Chosen Food, is the absolute leader in that category. Many other players are trying to follow their path, which is a very interesting company. At some point, it would be great that you guys interview the Chosen Food case, because they have not only developed a very successful brand in the US, but they have integrated vertically in many areas within the US to keep it growing. Avocado-based mayonnaise, which is also massive, is growing rapidly. Avocado-based skincare and beauty products is also growing at a very interesting pace. And even dog food. Avoderm, for instance, is a brand that is dog food enriched by avocado oil and avocado flavors that is also becoming very popular in the US. So yes, avocado as a source of enriching products and as a core ingredient is becoming very, very popular.
Juan, I have, going back to the original topic that we had about the trade wars that were fortunately prevented, what's the logistic? Were the avocados for this Super Bowl already there? They wouldn't have to pay the tariffs if they had come in? Or how often do avocados travel to the States? What's the logistic in that? So what can you tell us about that?
Well, normally avocados are transported, solid green, not ripe. So the avocados and the guacamole, most likely it's completely all produced and it has been already readily available at the supermarket level for more than 2 or 3 weeks. The pre-packed fresh avocado is shelf stable for more than a month. So provided it's sealed and vacuumed, in a way that you can actually buy it fresh if you don't choose to prepare it, right? I don't have the breakdown on how much, if it's prepared and how much is bought ready to eat, but the ready to eat category is growing double digit as well, and the technology and the packaging around pre-packed a guacamole is astonishing as well.
And that's prepackaged in Mexico, or it's prepackaged here, no? If I understand correctly.
Normally, the industry acquires large bags of pre-packed avocado, which is plain, and closer to the point of sale, there are multiple service providers that can help you mix up the base or the avocado, pre-packed avocado, with the right spices and making sure that it fits the consumer needs in different markets in the US.
Brilliant, Juan. Well, thank you very much. Just that final question: who's going to win?
Yeah, the Chiefs, of course. I'm a Swiftie, so most likely because of Taylor Swift, that not only the Chiefs are going to win, but also that she probably will drive an additional amazing audience into the field, including young girls. So from a marketing perspective, this is like a perfect time.
Terrific. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Juan.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
So, Eduardo, going back to the Super Bowl itself, the Super Bowl, as a Brit living in Mexico, one of the things I've learned that perhaps people outside Mexico wouldn't have expected is how important American football is in Mexico. I was looking at some stats, and the viewers are expected to be about 20 million people.
That's correct.
Which puts the Super Bowl, way up there with top domestic soccer games. Not equivalent to the World Cup, of course, but it's way up there with some of the biggest football games. So I was reading that the NFL has about 60 million supporters outside the United States, of which a full 50%, 30 million, are in Mexico, which makes Mexico obviously by far and away the largest non-US market. Is that you grew up here, you're from here. Have you been a supporter? Have you seen interest in American football grow?
I gotta say, Damien, since I was a kid, I do remember watching American football, not to the degree that we can watch it today. There were fewer broadcasts, games back in my youth, which was quite a while. But yeah, I mean, I became Miami Dolphins fan because when I was a kid, they had an undefeated season. So Larry Sonka and Bob Creasy and all those guys were my heroes. But so it has been present in Mexico for quite a while, but the way it has grown recently is very impressive. The numbers you just recall are very large. Mexicans travel to the Super Bowl. I mean, those that can afford very expensive tickets, but it's always been a sport that has captured the imagination of a lot of Mexicans. Despite the fact that we are not as big and large to play it, it's always been a very fun sports to watch. And now you can watch almost any game if you have access to cable TV or streaming television. And I believe that the NFL has its eyes placed on Mexico as a potential growing market for merchandise. Even, who knows, in the future we might have an NFL team, although the economics of Mexico probably does not yet reach the level that it can support a team of that magnitude in terms of what it requires to run a professional NFL team in terms of the stadium, the salaries that you pay these players, the price of the tickets, etc., TV rights. But you never know.
A couple of days ago, the commissioner of the NFL said that by 2030, he wanted to have an NFL team outside the United States. And the current favorites to be the host of a team are London.
I was going to tell you, yeah,
um,
the Brits have grown interested into the American football too.
and Mexico City. I think Mexico City, in its favor, it has the same time zone, so it'd be more complex to do it in London. It has its big fan base.
Right.
You have big consumer companies, like Bimbo or Corona, Modelo, that could sponsor a team. But I think maybe some of the disadvantages are, well, obviously, maybe issues on the infrastructure.
Correct.
Be interesting to see with this remodelation of the Azteca Stadium going on right now, whether it would work for an NFL team. There have already been 5 NFL games in Estadio Azteca.
I've been to one and it was fun. It was different. Mexico City could be potentially one of the expanding places. I wonder if the altitude might have any issues. I don't think so as much as it does in baseball.
Because Denver's pretty high, right?
Denver, that was what we were going to say. The Broncos play in Denver, and that's a pretty high altitude city. So maybe Mexico City, with this huge population, could really support a team, or even in the north. Who knows?
And what do you think about the new professional American Football League in Mexico? This news that former NFL and NBA players have bought the Monterrey team and rebranding it as the Osos. Do you think there's possibility that the American football could take off with a Mexican league, or the dominance of NFL for Mexico makes it very difficult to compete with that?
No, I think there is space for the Mexican La Liga de Fútbol Americano, as it is called, can grow as you already have the interest. And there have been a few Mexican players that have actually made it into the NFL. So I think this acquisition that you mentioned by these two, well, it was a group of investors, but led by a basketball player and a football player, will raise the profile of the league and will eventually either help it to become more professionalized or more attractive to fans, or that a team from that league might become an NFL team. Now, the problem with the Monterrey team that it's been rebranded as the Osos is that you already have some Osos in Chicago, so the Bears, so they will have to find a different name, I guess. But I think the fact of the matter that a group of investors is looking at this league indicates that there is great potential for the league to become more popular, merchandise much more, TV rights, etc., etc. All the elements that come on with the business of professional sports might lead itself to a more professional league. I think so.
Great. Well, it'll be interesting to see that develop, and maybe soccer will become a North American league with Mexican teams playing in the US and vice versa. And maybe eventually by 2030, we may see a team come in Mexico, or maybe something in the middle with teams playing more often in Mexico and having some kind of twin city in Mexico, but their main base in the US, Arizona, for example.
Correct.
And then playing, a third of their games in Mexico.
They are already in terms of soccer. We already have a CONCACAF championship where teams from the region, Canada, the US, Mexico, and Central America, they all play a little bit like the European Championship. And that is, I think, if the leaders of this industry become smart, that could really elevate the level of the playing in the region and make it a very interesting proposition for viewers, as then the nationalities will come into play. You have Mexican players already playing in the US, you have US players playing in Mexico. So it is becoming a more integrated region in terms of sports. There are enormous amount of fans for American football here. There are enormous amount of fans for baseball here. And soccer in America has been growing steadily for the past year. So there are a lot of potentials, and you could see it in the terms with these investments that are taking place in Mexican football teams, beer soccer, American football, baseball, as we spoke about it with the Diablos a few episodes ago. So yeah, very interesting times for the sports industry in Mexico and America.
Well, I was reading that the price per ticket is actually maybe 30% down on last year. It's a bigger stadium in New Orleans, so there's more seats. I think people might be slightly fatigued with the same teams playing again. It takes away some of the excitement.
It does.
And Las Vegas is, where it was last year, is a more attractive destination. So, for $5,000-6,000, you can get a seat, another $1,500 for a hotel, and I can't even imagine what the airplane tickets are going to cost.
Yeah, maybe one day we'll broadcast from the Super Bowl, you and I.
Terrific. Well, let's now move on to interview with Abelino Rodriguez, who's the CEO and founder of The Lift, Mexico's leading audio-visual production company. The Lift has been operating in Mexico for 20 years now, and it's helped produce some of the most iconic commercials in the US. Abelino, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Demian.
So, Avelino, as you know, we're talking today about the Super Bowl and why it's relevant in Mexico. And I wanted to have you on the podcast to talk a little bit about Super Bowl ads that have been made in Mexico, even if the viewer doesn't know that, and then more broadly about Mexico as an attractive place to do nearshoring of audiovisual production services. So why don't we kick off first with a little bit of a background on what the Lift is and what Super Bowl ads you've helped produce over the years?
Yes, well, as you will say, the Lift is an audiovisual production company. Our core business is to import production from other countries, mainly from the United States. We founded the company 20 years ago. We started doing 4 projects the first year, 6 the second one, and we kept on growing to the point that we are doing around 90 to 100 every year. So as we have been building up the company and presenting that Mexico is the best film destination in the world, which we firmly believe in, we started to get some traction with this very special work that shows in the Super Bowl. So as you know, the Super Bowl has the highest cost per minute for a commercial. So those commercials tend to have most of the time the best in class production as well. So we have been blessed with some of that production over the course of the past years.
Can you name a few, Abelino? What are your favorites that you've worked on?
Yes, well, we did, of course, one for Avocados for Mexico, which is an account that has been going around other Mexican companies as well. But I think that our favorite by far is Pringles. No, we were able to do the 3 of them, which is this saga of this individual that has a Pringles can instead of his arm and everything that goes and happens around it. So that by far has been our favorite, and also the favorite of the audience. No, it has been recognized as one of the most memorable as we have been doing.
Abelino, and how did you break into the Super Bowl commercial ad production? How did your company manage to do that?
Mainly, we have been always targeting the best production companies that we can in the world and trying to offer a world-class production experience in Mexico. And then those companies tend to have the best directorial talent. The director of the commercial is going to be the epicenter of everything and has more to do to the final product than even a film commercial, a feature film commercial, because everything is going to be their responsibility. So we have been building up the careers of some of those directors or been partnering with them since a long time ago. So when they do their breakthrough to the Super Bowl scene, we are part of their options to shoot. Sometimes they shoot in Mexico, or they can go to Eastern Europe, or they can stay in the US. But our goal and our mission is to bring us most important and relevant work of the world to Mexico.
Correct. And I guess Mexico's talent convinces these directors, and your company's production talent convinces them that this is a serious place where they could do their creative work at a lower cost. Am I right?
That is totally correct. So what we propose to the clients starts with locations. Definitely locations will have a pretty relevant role. And that is what tied also our growth to the tourism growth in Mexico. So as you see Mexico City growing more and more sophisticated and a better option for international tourism and growing, that has happened to us because the location inventory and the whole experience becomes way more sophisticated and cool, no, in a way. Then it's going to be the on-camera talent. We have been also developing better actors, better models that stand out of what was the 90s standard of the Latino Internacional, no?
Correct.
Now you have people that look like more normal, more standard, everyday people. And as the diversity of the people has been growing in Mexico, that also made us more competent. And then definitely the cost. And then, of course, the off-camera talent. No, Mexico, as you might remember, since the 50s has been established as a production service destination. Remember that we used to manufacture a lot of American films back then in the 40s, 50s. So all that legacy stayed with our technical crews, and that has been passing on generation to generation. And we have the best attitude and the most competent crews in the world.
Is there anyone else that challenged you in Mexico, that challenged Lyft to bring these commercials to the country, or are you?
Yes, we have like 20 competitors.
Wow.
Their market share changes depending on the year. We have some competitors that are more aggressive than others. Some of them, they just see our client list and they just go after them to see if they can take that from us. Some others that are more creative and looking to some other clients or agencies directly. But what we have seen is the competition growing, definitely, but also the market has grown. So what we do is that we try to set a goal of where we can cap production that we can handle with excellence, and we limit ourselves to 90 projects approximately with 5 production lines. And that means that is what we can handle on a year. Otherwise, we would be needing to reach out to the freelance market, and we do not tend to do that much. No? We try to keep it as much in-house as we can.
Correct.
So we can secure the standard of our production. And that's our biggest competitive advantage, will be always that world-class standard. No?
And Abelino, the government recently announced something called Plan Mexico to promote nearshoring with different tax advantages. How does this affect, if it does, the commercial production sector in Mexico? And how does the tax benefits of filming in Mexico compare to other places?
In that sense, what you can see is the goodwill of the Ministry of Economy, not just in this administration, but in the past as well. And they put the film industry as a strategic industry to export services. The thing is that when they put it on that basket, we are going to be compared to the automotive, for example. And the level of investment that we need in production is not necessarily the same that you need for these big factories or industrial parks in the north of the country. So there was a misalignment there, very difficult to get the incentives, because if you want to buy film equipment, for example, the limit of the investment has nothing to do with those bigger investments where all that program made sense. Also, in terms of training and some other advantages, because the industry hasn't been ready to make the most of it. So those ones are more aligned for big industrials, and definitely they help a lot, and also being nominated as a strategic industry helps. But if you compare Mexico to the other 20 countries on the OCDE, Mexico is the only country that does not have an aggressive production film incentive. Like you can say, for example, that in the Basque country in Spain, in San Sebastian, you can get up to 60% back on tax rebates or cash refunds from the government. So that puts Mexico in a very, very difficult place when it's competing in cost, because you have also other countries in Latin America that are not comparable in the quality with Mexico, but in cost they are. So you have Colombia with a 35% rebate. You have Uruguay that can get close to the 50. You got Dominican Republic with another 35. So that is putting some pressure into the Mexican industry, especially when you are an exporter. That's something that we have communicated to the government, and we have developed some of the recommendations for those incentives. But we also understand that this is not necessarily the main priority of the government at this moment.
But we're very happy to encourage by this interview the governments to listen that there is money to be made by them and for the country if they take care of your industry with a little bit more detail or nuance, may I say.
100%. I mean, this is an industry that is close to 1% of the GDP, where half of it is going to be production. So taking these incentives immediately could add up another 0.5% to the GDP, which is good money. I mean, it's growth. No?
And Mexico City's seen a bit of a tourist boom in the last 5 years, let's say. Great restaurants opening up, great bars, great music, and so on. Does that play a role in the advertising companies in the US deciding to film here?
Yes, I think we have three different audiences. No? We have the production companies that caters more to the creative audiences, which is like an international tribe. No, you have the more corporate traveler that is going to be the advertising agencies and the clients, but you have everything for everyone. No, and then you can see the directors like not believing the immense level of depth of different scenes and culture that Mexico has to give. And at the same time, you have the corporate clients very happy because the quality of the hotels is outstanding, the service is world-class, and the gastronomic offer is enormous, no? Or you can name, for example, the Art Week. Like this week, because you see a lot of clients, CFOs coming to Mexico, and makes it a hip city, you know? So if you compare the Mexican Art Week to the Miami Art Basel, there's people that is way more fun to our Art Week and even that Art Basel itself. No, so I think that Mexico is doing very, very well in that sense of putting out in the market everything that has to offer linked to its culture and cultural diversity as well.
I also understand, Avelino, that the ads that you're producing also take some of the business outside of Mexico City. Someone that I know, I think he filmed a commercial for the Super Bowl with the Irish Spring brand, and they did it in Hidalgo as well as a Corona ad. I don't know if it was your agency, to be honest, but I think it's also good business for other urban or rural areas of the country.
It definitely is. Actually, we shot the Irish Springs in the state of Mexico in Lagunas de Zempoala.
Yeah,
that went to the Super Bowl, and that was really fun.
It was a really
and yes, that's a surrealistic hippie new age commercial.
Exactly.
And that we love. And yeah, like for example, when you take that into account, our multiplier on the economy when we go out can be up to 5 times. No, wow. So every dollar that we bring can bring it to up to 5 times. No, the standard could be 2.6. So yes, definitely for governments and for states, the bringing in production is very, very useful. No, that's why you see that San Sebastian has this incentive and not Madrid, for example, no, because they want to make it more competitive. Jalisco is now taking the lead in terms of state-wide incentives, and they are doing a great job there. And I think that that's something that you're going to start to see more often, states opening these incentives, no, and they will decide if they want to bring in more commercials or they want to bring in more features or TV series. Because here, if you consider not just the greater Mexico City area, but the greater Mexico City area, accounting for Tlaxcala, accounting for most part of the state of Mexico, a little part of Morelos, then you have a lot that you can bring to life, no, and make it more productive, definitely.
Tremendous locations. Yes, indeed.
Yes.
Avelino, thank you very much indeed for joining the podcast, and look forward to watching some of your ads on Sunday.
I'll keep you posted.
Congratulations, Avelino.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Well, that's it for today's episode of Mex Moves. Thanks for listening, everyone. I'm Eduardo Garcia, along with Damien. Thank you, and Damien.
Thank you very much. Hope to catch you next week.